Nimai. Nimai Pandit. You know the meaning of Pandit? Someone who's learned. Brahmanas are often called Pandit or Pandita because they're very learned. And his name Nimai is in relation to the neem tree under which he was born. Thus, Nimai. And Bala means his childhood pastimes. We're only going to go up to a certain time of his childhood, particularly his childhood in Navadwep. Because when we have Gaur Purnima itself, we'll hear more about Navadwep. Something we heard about Navadwep yesterday. Who remembers what we heard about Navadwep yesterday? I see two hands. Go ahead. What do you remember? Because you came and asked me about it afterwards.
Yes. Navadvipa is a Leela country.
Leela. So, for those of you that have been around for a while, or certainly those of you from India, you know that the temples in South India, where they worship Narayana, the smaller deities in the front for their festivals are Shri and Bhu. You've seen? Many of you have seen. Now, at least you know. So there's the larger, and a deity of Lord Narayan, of some, perhaps, some Leela avatar. And commonly in the front, there's two smaller deities, Devis, or deities of the potencies or Shaktis of Narayana. Shri, a name of a goddess of fortune. Shri means beauty. And Bhu is in relation to this earth, Bhu, mandala, the earthly plane. So Shri and Bhu. But these are spiritual potencies. They may have their material manifestations, but there's spiritual potencies. And a third is Nila, N-I-L-A, Nila. And Nila, we heard yesterday, Caitanya Mahaprabhu was married in his youth. He was married. And one of his wives, in feelings of separation because Lord Chaitanya was traveling and giving his message in different distant lands in East Bengal. So she died in feelings of intense separation. So he married a second time at the encouragement, the request, petition of his mother, Vishnu Priya. So Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya, we heard yesterday evening. They're Shri and Bhu. As Narayan has Shri and Bhu, Caitanya Mahaprabhu had Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya as his consorts or Shaktis. And the third, Shri Bhu and Nila. It's a detail, but it plays into the place where Mahaprabhu was performing his pastimes was known as Navadwep. And the whole of the spiritual abode was manifested by Nila Shakti or Navadwep. So he was born in Navadwep underneath a neem tree. So here's a nice painting. Before he was born, before Nimai was born, there were 8 daughters that died shortly after they were born. It doesn't give an explanation of why that happened, but it happened. Like when Krishna was born, there were 6 older brothers, but that is some story behind those 6 older brothers, and they were killed by Kamsa. But so rather than going to that, 8 daughters, imagine, 8 daughters, one after the next, all died shortly after birth or immediately after birth. So she had one son who survived. His name was Vishvambar. We're going to hear some more about him. That was Nimai's elder brother. And this painting is showing Mother Sita Devi. Sita Devi was the name of Advaita Acharya's wife. Advaita Acharya, we know who Advaita Acharya? Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, that one, Sri Advaita. So Advaita Acharya's wife came from Shantipur to visit Mother Sachi shortly after the child's birth. When she saw the small child, the painting is meant to show, because it's part of culture. When a child is born, some gifts are given to the family. So she came bearing gifts, but she saw this beautiful child, and you can see from the painting, she was thinking, oh, he's so beautiful, he looks like Krishna. But she suggested to Sachi to name him Nimai. And the reason was because he was born under a neem tree, and in local culture there in Bengal, well, all over India, neem trees are very good for digestion. The leaves of the neem tree are bitter, and it's kind of like a standard procedure in Bengal in the beginning of a meal to take neem, because it's bitter. And when taking something bitter at the beginning of a meal aids in digestion. So if you're a Bengali, it's like standard, because there's neem trees all over the place. And in addition, neem is said to be protective. So her idea, Sita Devi's idea, was this child should be protected from danger and difficulty and what the other children of Sachi had to undergo. So she made that suggestion. Sometime later, Sachi's father was a very qualified Brahmana priest. So he did several things. He did the rituals that go along with the name-giving ceremony, and doing the astrological, he also had these skills. He had astrological capacity. He's a very good astrologer. So he did the astrology chart of the new boy, and he was very astonished, because as far as the chart looked, it looked like he was the personality of Godhead. So he gave him the name Vishvambar, and the other learned scholars also. Vishva means universe, like Vishvarup or Virat Rup is the universal form, right? So Vishva, Vishvambara, and this Vishvambara, he liked that name, and the ladies, they liked the Nimai name. So before it was just kind of like a nickname, but then it stuck. He's Nimai, and he's also Vishvambar. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, here's what's written. The verbal root dubrin indicates nourishing and maintaining. Vishvambar nourishes and maintains the three worlds by distributing love of God. Some of our mantras refer to Caitanya Mahaprabhu in that way. We're used to Gora or Gauranga or Caitanya Mahaprabhu or Sri Krishna Chaitanya, but a more formal name is this Vishvambar name. Vishvambar means he maintains and nourishes the three worlds, or the whole universe, by distributing love of God. And after some time, little Nimai began to crawl, and after some time he began to toddle. And as he was toddling, the mother and father, so the father of Nimai was Jagannath Mishra, a Brahmana. We're going to hear more about his name, so get used to hearing his name. Jagannath Mishra was the father, and Sachi, or Sachi Mata, Mother Sachi, was the mother. So they saw, as their child began to walk, they saw footprints. Now, footprints means the ground was kind of sandy, and so when people would walk, it would leave some mark in the ground. Not like, pavement and stuff. They could see marks, and they looked at the marks, and they saw the marks of Lord Vishnu in the sandy soil, and they were astonished. What's this? So they Sachi brought her father, Nilambar Chakravarti, to look at the marks. And who is this? It's the marks of Lord Vishnu. So this one shows just the marks, and this one is the same. It shows what the marks represent. On one heel is the fish, and the upper part is a conch shell and a bow, etc., etc., etc. And there's names for all these things. A goad for controlling the elephants, that's Dvaja, and so forth. All auspicious marks. So they didn't know what to think of it. Somehow Lord Vishnu paid them a visit. And from his early childhood, even before his pastimes of distributing the Sankirtan activities, he was engaged with his friends, as children will do, and when they could toddle, then singing and dancing. So you see on the right-hand side, there are the ladies clapping, and on the left-hand side, there's some men who are musicians, and as soon as they would sing and play their musical instruments, the boys would dance, and Nimai would be the lead dancer and singer. He enjoyed very much. Sometimes, as little children will do, he would cry. And whenever he would cry, nothing could work to get him to stop crying except they would sing Krishna's name. So chanting and clapping and singing Krishna's name, he would stop crying and smile. And as soon as they stopped singing, he'd start crying again. So he was engaging them in Sankirtan in that way. And they liked singing Krishna's name, and they liked seeing him smile. They didn't like seeing him cry. These are childhood pastimes. Once, Mother Sachi gave Nimai a sandesh. Our children, do you know what is sandesh? You know what is sandesh, right? It's a milk sweet. You know what is sandesh? Never heard of it? I'll let you just listen. I'll explain. It's white, and it's a little soft, and it's made primarily from milk, and there's sweetened milk, and it's made and cut into squares commonly, or sometimes made into balls, but usually squares. Sandesh. It's a very nice milk sweet.
The only sweet I know is laddu.
Huh?
The only sweet I know is laddu.
Globjamans. That's a good one too. So she gave him a sandesh. It's a globjaman's brother from the same family. And instead of eating the sandesh, he started eating dirt. And Mother Sachi was watching him, as mothers will do. And when he started eating dirt, he scolded him. Why are you eating dirt? And a little boy started speaking Mayavad philosophy. Mother, why are you unhappy. What's the difference between sand, ash, and dirt? They're all earth, and so it's all one. Why are you unhappy? And she was astonished. How is this little boy learning Mayavad philosophy? Most of these childhood pastimes are described in Caitanya Bhagavat. And the reason that they're in Caitanya Bhagavat is because when a later biographer, who was Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, he purposefully did not rewrite things that were already written out of respect and deference to the author who wrote Caitanya Bhagavat, the earlier written pastimes. The earlier written pastimes written by Vrindavan Das, who lived in the same area of Navadwep. Krishna Das, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, never lived in Navadwep. He learned everything that he learned and wrote everything that he wrote from others that primarily associated directly with Caitanya Mahaprabhu after he had taken sannyas and was living in Puri. I mean, primarily, there's two main sources for Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj. Krishnadas Kaviraj was, by that time, very, very elderly. Krishnadas Kaviraj, for years and years and years and years, was a great scholar, but he was hearing from one of Lord Chaitanya's direct associates who practically lived with him in Puri and understood everything because one of Lord Chaitanya's most intimate associates explained everything. He was in his care. So for newer people, it's these too many names, but Sarup Damodar was the name of the one who explained. He understood the mood, the heart, the feelings, as well as he knew the details of what was done. So he explained all of that to Raghunath Das, who then, after Mahaprabhu left this world, he went to Vrindavan and stayed in the care of the other Goswamis, particularly Rupa and Sanatan, who requested him every day, because we were serving here in Vrindavan while you were serving him in person in Puri. So you know things that we don't know because you were with him in Puri. So every day for 3 to 4 hours, sit under this tree right here at Radhakund and just describe his pastimes so that all the Vaishnavas here in Vrindavan can know about them intimately, as you know. So that's what he did. And in the audience was someone a little younger, but a very learned person, Krishna Das, and Krishna Das then wrote, at the request of all the Vaishnavas, he wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. All of this is to say, many of these pastimes, like this one and the next ones, they're in the earlier book called Caitanya Bhagavat, because it was written and elaborately expressing these pastimes. And so he didn't do a rewrite. He just sometimes touched on them just to make reference to them. And those who knew Lord Chaitanya's pastimes knew where to find the details. It's over there in Caitanya Bhagavat. So one time, that's how it's written, one time, little Nimai was playing in the yard, and he saw a very large cobra, and he went directly to the very large cobra, who sat in like a coiled position, and he sat on the cobra like the cobra was Anantashesh, and he was Vishnu, reclining on Anantashesh. And he was having fun, enjoying his pastime as the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoys the pastime of reclining on Anantashesh. And you see in the painting, the local people saw this, Mother Sachi, some elders, and they became very alarmed. Here's our little Nimai playing on the back of a cobra. He just smiled. And after some time, he got up, the cobra slithered away, and the pastime was over. But he was enjoying his pastime of Lord Vishnu reclining on Anantashesh. When he was young, his mother and father decorated him with gold ornaments. So some thieves noticed, look at this little boy. He has so many gold ornaments. They decided to kidnap him. And then they decided to kill him and then take all the golden ornaments. That was...
Why didn't they just take the gold off the boy and then just leave him there?
This is the way they did it. I don't know. The thieves have their own way of... They do it differently than you would do it. That's what they did. So they enticed him with some sandesh. And, little boys like sandesh, if they know, especially if they know what it is. They like club jamuns too, but they like sandesh. So they offered him some sandesh. He smiled and was accepting. And one of them picked him up, and he was having a nice time going for a ride. Some of you know Krishna's pastimes. It was Trinavarta, and he was giving a ride to Balaram. So in this case, it's the two thieves giving a ride to Nimai. And Nimai, by his spiritual potency, arranged that they got lost. So they went around, and then they went around, and they went around, and then they realized they were just going around, and they started to panic. So they dropped Nimai and ran. By this time, Mother Sachi found out, and something's up. And so she went to find Nimai, and there he was, eating sandesh. She was very happy. Another time, that's how it's written in Caitanya Bhagavat, another time, little Nimai was in the mood of Lord Balaram. So some of you know the pastime in Krishna's Leela, where Balaram was with gopis, that's what's in the picture, and he called the river Jamuna to come, and the river Jamuna didn't want to come. And then Balaram became very angry, and he raised his plow. So one time he, little Nimai, little boy, was in the mood of Balaram or Baladev, and Advaitacharya saw that. He saw him in his Balaram form. There you see it in the lower right-hand side of the painting. There's Advaitacharya with his arms raised, and the other devotees having kirtan. It's just an artist's way of depicting, seeing Nimai in that mood. Now there's a very lengthy description of this pastime, as was the practice of Brahmana mendicants. Sometimes Brahmanas they weren't, in this case, this man was not a renunciate, he was just a Brahmana, but he traveled here and there to holy places, Navadwep being one of them. And when he reached Navadwep, he was seeking shelter for some days as he was doing his worship. He had, as his deity that he was traveling with was a little Bal Gopal deity. You know what a Bal Gopal deity is? You've seen sometimes? People have on their altar, crawling, little Bal Gopal, little boy with some gulab jamun in his hand, some yogurt in his hand, laddu in his hand, something in his hand, and he's looking at you. He's smiling. So this man was worshipping a Bal Gopal deity. And so Jagannath Mishra, the father, was very happy to have him stay. And this Brahmana said, I'm accustomed to cooking and for making an offering. So Jagannath Mishra said, "Oh, Mother Sashi, she can prepare, or I can prepare." He said, "No, I'm accustomed to doing this myself. May I have the ingredients for making an offering for my deity?" So yes, everything. And so he did the cooking, and his Bal Gopal deity was worshipped with the Gopal mantra. What's the Gopal mantra? Gopal mantra is a Gayatri mantra. You don't need to know it yet. One day you'll get there. But those who are receiving Gayatri initiation in ISKCON, there's Harinam Diksha and there's Gayatri mantras, plural. So one of those Gayatri mantras is this Gopal mantra. So he was chanting this Gopal mantra, and at the end of saying his Gopal mantra, he allowed, because these mantras are chanted silently, he then said, "Oh Gopal, please come and accept your meal." So Nimai is Gopal. So he came and he ate everything. While the Brahmana hadn't yet finished his puja, but he called Gopal to come and eat his meal. So the little boy, Nimai, who is Gopal, Krishna, he ate everything. And the Brahmana saw, after he was, as you see in the painting, there's so many things he had prepared. He was astonished. "Oh no, this is very bad. What to do? And Jagannath Mishra heard his calling loudly. So he came running and he said, "Your son has eaten everything." And I hadn't even finished the offering. I was just calling Gopal to come and take his meal. And Jagannath Mishra looked for Nimai. "Where is he? This is very bad. This is not right. So please allow me to clean up and I'll cook for you." And he said, "No, I'll make another offering." The long story is, it happened 3 times. And each time he did the cooking and made the offering, said his Gopal mantra and called Gopal to come and take his meal. Gopal came and ate everything. And now it's late at night. And so finally he said, "It's okay. I'll just forego it this evening." Jagannath Mishra insisted, "No, please. I'll watch my son. I'll guard him. I'll make sure he doesn't interfere and do this again." And somehow Nimai snuck away and he did it again. So he ate everything, and the Brahmana saw him eating. And he then, "What have you done?" 3rd time. And then Nimai, here in Caitanya Bhagavat, he's called Sri Gaurasundara, then appeared before the Brahman in a 4-armed form, holding a conch disc club and lotus. He ate butter with one hand from a pot held in the other hand, and with 2 other hands he played the flute. So he moved from the 4-armed Vishnu form and then displayed a 4-armed Krishna form, eating butter with one hand, holding the butter pot in the other hand, and the other 2 hands holding his flute. After appearing in that wonderful form, along with his own abode, so in addition to it's just not just a form, but in his whole spiritual atmosphere, the Lord bestowed unlimited mercy upon the pious Brahmana. He then explained to the Brahmana his own identity, the Brahmana's position as his eternal servant, and the cause of his incarnation. And then the Lord forbade the Brahmana from disclosing these secret topics to anyone. Now he must have somehow told somebody, because we know about it. And there wasn't any outcries, and so in the morning, Jagannath Mishra said, "How did it go?" I said, "Oh, it's very nice." Gopal ate everything. It was very nice. He didn't disclose to Jagannath Mishra what Nimai had done. Childhood pastime. Sometimes Gora Gopal pleaded for his parents or from his parents to give him birds flying in the sky or stars in the moon at night from the sky. When he did not receive these things, he began to cry. Then there was no way to solace the child other than chanting. Then one time, it was an Ekadasi day, and their friends, also Brahmanas, named Jagadish and Hiranya Pandit, and they decided this Ekadasi day, let's make some very, very, very special Vishnu Prasad. And they spent hours making very special prasad to offer to their deity, Vishnu deity. And little Nimai, because their home was some distance away, little Nimai asked his father, no, he started crying again. And nothing, this is what happened. Nothing happened. They couldn't, even the chanting wouldn't stop. They asked him, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And Nimai said, "I want the prasad that Jagadish and Hiranya made for their Vishnu deity. Very special prasad." And his father was astonished. So, if that would get his son to stop crying, he went to the home of Jagadish and Hiranya and said, "My son said you made some very special prasad for Vishnu." And they were astonished. How did he know? How did he know? Yes, we'll give him everything. And so they brought back the Vishnu Prasad for Ekadasi, and Nimai ate, and he was very happy. He stopped crying. And everyone was astonished. How does this boy know these things? Again, childhood pastimes. Sometimes, as he got a little older, he, with his friends, would go to the Ganga, and little boys liked playing anyway, and their play was in the Ganga. And sometimes when they play in the Ganga, he would do very mischievous things. Sometimes he would tease his friends. Sometimes he would quarrel with his friends. Sometimes they played splashing games and swimming in the Ganga. And then when elderly people came to take their bath in the Ganga, Nimai would go and splash them. And sometimes when the Brahmanas were engaged in chanting Gayatri Mantra, he'd swim underwater and pull their leg as they were chanting Gayatri. Very mischievous. And they go complain to Jagannath Mishra, "Your son is doing this, your son is doing that." And then this painting is showing the young girls. He would also, they're making some offerings for the Ganga, and here's Nimai reaching in the middle of what their offering is and snatching it. So he would tease the young girls too. And they would bring this message to Mother Sachi, complaining to Mother Sachi. And Mother Sachi would pacify them because she was a very sweet personality. And somehow they became calmed down hearing from her. But when these reports kept coming, Jagannath Mishra decided, I'm going to scold my son. So he Nimai heard that his father was coming to scold him. So quickly he went in a different path to get back to his home. But before going, he told his friends, "When my father comes, please just tell him today Nimai didn't come to take bath in the Ganges." In other words, it was a lie. So he's coming to scold him because he's doing mischief in the Ganges. Tell him he didn't come today to the Ganges. And he didn't see him going back on another path. So he went back home, and he saw Nimai with ink, because, little implements for children to write and color, and on his face and on his hands, and his father said, how did this happen? He said, I didn't go to the Ganges today. I stayed home. I was playing. His child behavior, tricking his father. As time passed, the house of Sachi and Jagannath Mishra was not far from the house where Advaitacharya had two homes. Some wealthy people have more than one home. So one of those homes, his main residence was in Shantipur. And Shantipur from Navadwep, by car ride, it's maybe 10-minute ride or something like that, 10, 12 minutes. And then the second home was near where the Brahmana community lived in Navadwep. So he had a home near Navadwep, and every morning he would give a Srimad Bhagavatam class. So the elder brother of Nimai, his name was Vishwarup. So the younger brother was Vishwambar, and the elder brother was Vishwarup. So Vishwarup did his morning, got up in the morning, took his bath, chanted his Gayatri, did his puja at home, and then he went quickly to Advaitacharya's home to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Srimad Bhagavatam classes that Advaitacharya gave were super excellent. So Vishwarup stayed for a long time. In fact, he stayed for many times for the entire morning. And he was so immersed in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Advaitacharya that sometimes Mother Sachi would have to send her younger son, Nimai, to bring Vishwarup back for lunch. It's the painting. He's holding on to his dhoti to bring him back for lunch. And he'd finish lunch, chant his midday Gayatri, and go right back to Advaitacharya's home to hear more Srimad Bhagavatam. So as time passed, he became so immersed in hearing spiritual teachings from Advaitacharya that his mother and father started getting a little worried. Maybe he'll become a renounced person, take sannyas and leave home. Parents get like that sometimes. And so Vishwarup, his elder brother, heard this talk. So he didn't want to get married. So he left home and took sannyas. It backfired. And when Vishwarup left home to take sannyas, their description is he took a sannyas name. His sannyas name mentioned in Caitanya Charitamrita, Shankaranya. Shankararanya. There we go, Shankararanya. That was his sannyas name. And seeing that her son, in fact, had taken sannyas, Sachi was very upset. And in her mind, and to her friends, she started complaining about Advaitacharya. He's the cause for me losing my son. He was given the wrong name. His name is Advaita, but it should be called Dvaita, because he's involved in worldly affairs and in dualism, and he's not an acharya because he had my son leave home and not finish his responsibilities to us as his parents. Nimai, young student, heard these complaints, and so he went with his hand raised to scold Mother Sachi, and everyone stopped him. What are you doing? He said, she's my mother, but I can't tolerate the fact that he's offended Advaita. She has offended Advaitacharya. So she understood his mood, and she apologized profusely. Advaitacharya took no offense. He understood her brotherly mood. And after some time in the Leela, little Nimai had a dream. And what's depicted in the dream was Vishwarup came to him in a dream and invited him to also accept sannyas. So Nimai explained this dream to his mother and father. Mother Sachi looks a little worried, doesn't she? And so they brought him to the side. Nimai assured his mother and father that he wouldn't take sannyas. However, because his inclination for studies was so strong, they were worried. If he continues to study and study and study, maybe he'll do the same thing that his brother did. So they decided, no more studies. Imagine mom and dad saying no more studies. Not so likely, right? But that's what they said. So he stopped. But as he stopped, he was showing his unhappiness. And one of those events of his unhappiness is depicted here. In the back of their home, there's a place where people would throw broken pots, clay pots, discarded pots, and other rubbish. That was their garbage disposal system. So little Nimai went back there in this place where there were so many clay pots, and he was sitting on the clay pots. And his mother came and said, Nimai, this is very unclean. You have to come and take your bath now. You've been in an unclean place. So he had this Mayavad discussion with her again. My dear mother, what's the difference between the earthen pot and the earth? The same ingredient, they come from the same place. His mother was very skilled. She said, well, an earthen pot is earth, that's for sure, but it's in such a way that it can carry water. And the earth can't carry water. So we have to make distinctions between things of this world. So then he concluded, very well, I'll leave this place and take my bath, but you'll have to promise me that you'll chant the holy name of the Supreme Lord. So she gave her reassurance, yes, we'll do that. And being the mother, she could understand the mood of her son, and his mood, which fits into his childhood pastimes, his mood was scholarship. The earlier part of his life, before he became initiated, was super scholar. And so he was enrolled in a school headed by Gangadas Pandit, and the village schools at that time were called Chatushpati. So he became one of Gangadas Pandit's students. However, he was such a skilled student that in course of time, short time, his teacher, Gangadas, engaged him as being kind of like an apprentice. So Nimai, took on other students. He formed his own little Chatushpati under the guidance of Gangadas. And he was so skilled that his school assembly grew and grew. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of young boys that were so eager to hear from him and become his student because he was so good. So good, such a good teacher. And often he would conduct his classes right by the side of the Ganges. So there's a very detailed description of once, as happens during this particular time, there were persons who were very skilled and learned. Here's this word pandita again. You're learning many words today. Learned scholar is a pandita. This word digbijay means traveling debater. He would go from holy place to holy place, and he would engage in debate. That was his thing. And he would wanted to find out who's the best scholar in that place. And then he'd engage in debate. So he came to Navadwep, and he heard the most scholarly of all is this young teacher named Nimai Pandit. So he came to the place, as you see in the painting, underneath a tree by the side of the Ganges, and he introduced himself and said, I'd like to know which of you is Nimai Pandit. So Nimai Pandit was very respectful and said many nice things. I've heard about your scholarship, and it's particularly I've heard that you're very gifted at poetry, Sanskrit poetry. Could you kindly, for our benefit, compose spontaneously some verses in glorification of the Ganges? Oh, sure, I can do that. Verses about the Ganges. And he then began reciting spontaneously 100 verses. You see the boat and the Ganges in the background. 100 verses flowing very swiftly and very, very meticulously. 100 verses. Try writing one verse. But, he was a very, very gifted person. And when he finished his 100 verses, Nimai said, I'd like to recite one of your verses. And from memory, it was verse number 64. And he recited verse number 64. And he said, could I hear from you what are the qualities and faults of this verse? And Keshav Kashmiri was astonished. How does this little boy remember? I can't remember any of them. And he remembers verbatim verse number 64. What's the capacity of this young man? And they said, but sure, qualities and faults, there's no qualities, there's no faults. Do you find some? And he said, well, as a matter of fact, although I'm a grammarian and you're a learned scholar, there's the fault of redundancy. And he pointed out within the verse, and the verse is quoted in Caitanya Bhagavat in full, Bhavani Bhartuhu. So Bhavani refers to the position of the wife of Lord Shiva, and Bhartuhu is redundant because it means his wife, the wife of Lord Shiva. So there's redundancy. And Keshav Kashmiri was astonished. This little boy, he's well known for his scholarship in grammar. That's nice. But what does he know about poetry? And the details and details and details of poetry. So he wanted to reply, and then Nimai said, not only this, there's many other discrepancies, but that's okay. Why don't you come back tomorrow and we'll discuss further. So Keshav Kashmiri was astonished because he was a worshipper of the goddess Saraswati, and Saraswati was so pleased by his worship that she had given him directly this benediction that he would never be defeated. Been here in some discussion. So Saraswati is the goddess of learning. Different personalities in Vedic culture have different positions, and that's her position, the goddess of learning. And so he was very confused and disturbed. So when he took rest at night, he was dreaming, how did Saraswati allow this to happen? So in his dream, what's being depicted in this painting is that Goddess Saraswati appeared to him in his dream. And Goddess Saraswati said, "I've gave you this benediction that you can't be defeated in an argument, but I can't go against one who is my Lord. And my Lord is the person who you met today. He is the personality of Godhead. You are getting your capacity from me, and I get my capacity from him. I can't go against him." So, in the dream, Saraswati showed that Nimai is none different than Krishna himself. So you should go to him in the morning and fall at his feet and beg forgiveness for this discrepancy between you and him. And he woke up. And he was astonished. And because he was also very learned, he could understand what Saraswati had just done. She was disclosing the identity of this young Sanskrit scholar, grammarian, Nimai Pandit. So he came back to where Nimai Pandit's school was. He didn't disclose. She said, "Don't disclose this to anyone." So he didn't disclose, but his mood completely changed. He was very respectful and not, his pride was deflated, and he was filled with respect for Nimai. So they had very nice exchanges the next day. And that's as far as we're going to go for his childhood pastimes. I have plans to discuss a number of other things during this visit before his appearance day on Monday. So, Lord Chaitanya, back to the Nimai's Balalila, his childhood pastimes. Again, largely these are found in Caitanya Bhagavat, which is another one of the biographies about his life. But the story of Keshav Kashmiri is in both, because apparently the way that Vrindavan Das Thakur covered it was just small, and in contrast, Krishna Das explains much more. And of course, the paintings are BBT paintings illustrating right from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that's it for this midday session on Lord Chaitanya's childhood pastimes. Any parts of this, or even off topic, something you would like to discuss in relation to Lord Chaitanya? Yes?
So, Maharaj, here we see that Mother Sachi's mood, the way she is doing things with Nimai, is that similar to Mother Jashoda? Like, does she know that this is personality of God?
No. She doesn't know. It says in Caitanya Bhagavat that when he was ready to take sannyas, he revealed his identity. It doesn't say that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, because her affection, he's my son, in different stages of life, but Chaitanya Bhagavat writes like that, the author writes like that. He disclosed his identity in speaking to her. Didn't take away her motherly affection. It doesn't say anything about that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, different perspectives.
Because yesterday's image where you showed Mother Sachi and Vishnu Priya, and when he was taking sannyas, that almost felt like when Krishna was leaving Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So that same mood.
Yes. Because the personalities, there's a bhava or an ecstasy or a spiritual emotion that plays itself out in different pastimes of the Supreme Lord, but it awakens a mood of love in the devotee. So her mood when Krishna left Mother Yasoda's mood when Krishna left Vrindavan, and Sachi's mood when Lord Nimai left Navadwep to take sannyas. Very similar mood.
Sure.
Yes.
So I was thinking about yesterday's lecture, and we showed about Achityanya's future later pastimes, like how he married and then he left family, took sannyas. So I'm trying to understand how do we process these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, because not very relatable to Grihastha family, like me, because he left family, he left everyone, and then he also left the world very early. So I was thinking, how do we process, or what's the message for us from all these pastimes? I mean, just to complete, I was thinking I can even relate better to Krishna's pastimes because he was a Grihastha. He had like fights with his wives, and he had children and grandchildren, and so that's fine.
For you or any other householder to look at Lord Chaitanya's winding up of his household life the way that he did, it wasn't when there were sons and he was, at an age, and his wife was at an age, and his wife was going to be looked after, and all those things, all those nice things. It isn't the lens to look at it through is not how is this apply to me. Rather, the lens to look at it is what's the purpose he's fulfilling. So he Caitanya Mahaprabhu, came to this world with a purpose. Now in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's external and there's internal. And the external, he came to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. And he came to respond to the calls of Advaita Acharya to appear in this world and bring a spiritual revolution, because in this dark age, people are too much covered. So there are external reasons and there's internal reasons. So his pastimes could unfold in n number of different ways. However, the reason is not just to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement, because he could have done that in different ways, as a householder or whatever. But in the internal reason, found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so this is esoteric, it's a little, not as you as a householder can relate to. He wanted to experience the mood and the feelings of Radharani's love for Krishna. And so he did that in this move of taking sannyas, leaving his loving mother and his loving wife at a very young age, and his loving mother who had no other children, no one other protectors. So it's not something that we would do. But he did, so that, and a third reason is their affection for him was enhanced by love and separation, but even more for him, it was plunging deeply into the mood of Radharani's feelings of love for Krishna, which is not kind of consistent with household life. It's apart from household life. To go the direction that he went in, and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and profound, and it wouldn't have fit with household life. So he that was a reason. I can send you a document that comes from the Bindu magazine, where Madhavananda goes into this same topic, from a slightly different angle, like not from how, as I'm a householder, going to relate to this unusual pastime, because I can't relate to it. He asks the question why, and he refers to one of Lord Chaitanya's associates who wrote a book on a discussion between Lokanath Goswami and Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who were friends in their childhood in Navadwep, where Lord Chaitanya is revealing his heart. And so I'll send you that document. It's just an extracted document from the latest Bindu magazine. But it's just what, the essence of it is, he wanted to go deeply into reciprocating with Radharani by experiencing the mood of love of Radharani and the feelings of separation from Krishna. It was a spiritual, transcendental, internal, and, esoteric purpose. And the byproducts of that, Sachi and Vishnu Priya, they plunged even deeper into feelings of love in separation. So it's not to teach us an example of how we as householders can live our household life. It's contradictory in one sense, but it's for a spiritual and profound purpose. And through that purpose, the external reason, the propagation of the Sankirtan movement, was fulfilled. But again, that could have been fulfilled in many other ways. So it's part of the mystery of Lord Chaitanya to understand who he is, Krishna himself, in the mood and the complexion of Radha. And then just keep going and keeps going. So that article, basically he's just taking the Sanskrit of this other author's writing and translating it, where Lord Chaitanya himself is explaining this apparently confusing, contradictory decision, his mood of, not exactly decision, his mood of love for Radharani, and thus to experience the full happiness of Radharani, to enter into that same mood himself, which he did. Not easy to understand.
There's an online question.
Okay.
What is better, to be a sannyasi or a household for better Krishna consciousness?
What's better is what's suited to your nature. That's what's better. The teachings of Rupa Goswami in several places, Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam, those things that are favorable for this person's bhakti, you accept it. And things that are unfavorable, you don't accept it. You leave it to the side. So each of us have different psychophysical natures, and according to our psychophysical nature, something's going to be more suited for me, and accept and embrace it for the purpose of strengthening your bhakti. So that which is going to nourish your bhakti, you do that. And if that's the purpose, and you have proper guidance, then you'll get closer to Krishna by this or that choice or direction of your life. So it's good to introspect and know what your nature is. It's also good to have good guidance. Both. Yes.
Very nice picture and very beautiful pictures. I have one question about
Louder.
when Bhakti Vinod Thakur saw that light at the neem tree where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
So, is it like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that vision, or like?
What do you think? Who else? Who gave it? If he didn't.
Yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay. You know, he was selective about who he gave that vision to, a qualified person.
One more question.
Yeah.
So, Nimai always used to give that Mayavadi philosophy.
He didn't always.
Not always.
Sometimes,
Right?
when it was
Sometimes.
appropriate.
Is it to test his mother? To test mother's knowledge? Or?
It's just, you know, why do children do things? They're playful. I mean, he was enjoying his pastimes with her, his loving. She's a Brahmani. She's the wife of one of the most learned persons in all of Navadwep. So she's also internally, she's not, you know, giving classes and things, but she's a very realized person from scripture. So when you can say he was testing her, but he was also in a playful mood, saying things that he didn't mean, but you know she knew how to answer because she's a learned lady. She didn't get bewildered. So he churning her nature and her love and her affection in a way that's suited for her Brahmani position.
Yeah, my question was Vishwaroop. We don't hear much about.
We don't hear much about.
So was he also Lord Balram's expansion? Or?
I can look it up. There's a book. While I'm speaking, I'll look it up. Gaura Gunadesh Dipika is a book written by Kavi Karnapur, and it's a who's who. And he sometimes gives the reference, and some, you know, based upon such and such, it is understood that he is in Krishna's Leela what he is in Krishna's Leela. Otherwise, it's just his realization. And he, Kavi Karnapur, is accepted as most authoritative. So, like when we read, some persons say that Nilambar Chakravarti was Brahaspati. Some say that he was Brahma. And there's two different verses in Gunadesh Tipika. So he doesn't like sort it out. If it's this, it can't be that. If it's that, it can't be this. So here, let's go to Gaura Gunadesh Tipika. And you're wanting to know who is Vishwaroop. Wow. I think I have to narrow it down. It's kind of handy to have a library in your computer with so many options. Gaura Gunadesh Tipika. Okay. Devotees say that Balaram took his birth as Vishwaroop. Let's see, there's some more references. Sri Vishwarupa is considered non-different from the incarnation of Lord Sankarshan, the second member of the Chaturvyuha. So Sankarshan is an expansion of Balaram. Lord Nityananda is said to be different, non-different from Lord Sankarshan. That Sri Vishwarup is identical with Lord Sankarshan is described in the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Quote, Lord Chaitanya's elder brother Vishwarup is identical with the personality of Godhead Lord Sankarshan. Vishwarup never married, but accepted the order of Paribrajakacharya sannyas and left home. It was the transcendental glory of Sri Vishwarup that caused Lord Chaitanya to accept spiritual initiation from Ishwarapuri. So that's the reference, Balaram, or Sankarshan, his expansion.
So thank you for the class. It's just like a random question. So
Random question, okay.
Yeah. So you know that story about like Nimai and the dog?
Nimai and the
No, and the dog, like, so there's like this really
the puppies?
yeah, the puppy. Yeah. So it's like a really dirty puppy. Nimai wants to play with it. Like his mother says no, and then like, dog goes to heaven and stuff. But like, why is it such an offense for us? Like, Maya and stuff, like we can't have like dogs and stuff. Like, okay, so Nimai's like he's like God. He's like, we're just mere mortals. So why is it such an offense for us to have like a pet?
It's not an offense. It's not an offense. I don't know where you heard that it's an offense. It's not an offense.
There was like this one story about like this king. He like, instead of worshiping like this like deity, like he was like he had this pet deer, and then he loved it so much.
Jada
that
bird.
he, like,
Jada bird.
yeah, Jada bird. He loved it so
Who?
much that
Jada Bharat
Bharat
Bharat Maharaj was affectionate to the deer, and he had to come back for the deer, and he took Bharat.
Yeah.
attached to the
So it's not an offense. There's multiple things. Tendency, material tendency is, well, that's aside from material spiritual, tendency of the soul is to have affection for an object, subject, object, and the exchange between subject and object. And material tendency is not Krishna. And it's easy to become attached to not Krishna. So it's not like an offense, but since ideally affection goes to Krishna, so that someone might say, "Hey, well, within the heart of that pet, cat or dog, or whenever there's a soul, and super soul's there. So what's your problem?" It's easier to say that philosophically, but then the tendency is to be attached to that which is here today and gone tomorrow. There's another important reason, and it's not an offense, but maintaining standards that are clean, that's important in devotee's life. One who's moving towards transcendence, cleanliness is next to godliness. And animals are not clean. So move towards cleanliness. It's not an offense, but it's compromise with cleanliness. So it's without going into it, I know some devotee families that because they recognize their children have a certain nature, they got a pet because of their child's certain nature. That's kind of unusual, but it's not an offense that what they did. And then there's with that, there's pluses and minuses, but as far as the trajectory towards attachment to that which is eternal, you add more things that are on the temporary and become attached to the temporary. It's not just an object, not like a computer screen or your watch or whatever it is, your iPhone. It's a person. Then you have an affectionate relationship with a person. So that which is unnecessarily adding on that which is by its very nature not clean, and by very nature is quite temporary. Anyway, does that address your question?
Yeah.
I don't know where you got the idea it's an offense.
I just don't want to be a dog.
Okay, that's not an offense. It's just that's a mistake. So then, if you're going to have a companion, including a pet, and you get attached, what's next? Whatever the mind is, according to Bhagavad Gita, whatever the mind is attached to at the time of death, that state one will attain without fail. That's the Jad Bharat story. So as far as possible, you, I, all of us should mold our lives in such a way that the path that we move on and the decisions we make are leading us closer and closer to that which is eternal. We take on things that are according to our nature that are not eternal, and those things that are not eternal, but they can be used in our service to Krishna, then it helps to spiritualize our consciousness as we move towards the goal. Anything else? Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it through all the traffic.